Yeah.
Parenting for the Troubled Teen by Cynthia O. and Chloe San. Wow, what adorable little babies. I wonder who they are.
I think it's us, Chloe. From children, we have grown to become the 16-year-old selves we are today under the influence of cultural background and child rearing from our parents.
And the effects of cultural upbringing on child discipline is exactly what we're going to discuss today. Woo!
Hey, you for chores? Are you out of your mind? You're 15 going on 16 years old.
Oh,
You
sorry.
want things for your laptop?
That was technical difficulty. Let's start from the beginning.
Camera, you want your phone? Hey, you for chores? Are you out of your mind? You're 15 going on 16 years old. You want things for your laptop, you want a new battery, you want a new cord, you want a new camera, you want a new phone, you want a new iPod, but you won't get off your lazy ass to even look for a job. The only job that you've applied to is the one I made you apply to because I got the application for you. And you've been too lazy to even carry that back.
Also, you get to live in my house. That's a pay for you. Daddy growing up is a never have a friend. Nobody is a daddy friend. Nobody help the daddy out. It's I go, I shovel dirt. Nobody give me money. Daddy beat up a 6 North Korean in 2 seconds.
That's
Pay you for the chores. Seriously? Pay you for chores that you're supposed to do around the house.
Daddy shovel dookie himself, huh? You shovel dookie 이 새끼야. 너 진짜 너 미치겠다 이 새끼야. Daddy not a swimmer 4,000 miles to come to America to shovel dookie. That's your job.
If you have any laundry of your own, do it. And if your bed is unmade, do it. You don't have to do my laundry. You don't have to make my bed. You don't have to make the guest bed. You have to make your own bed.
It's okay. You never have a daddy. You go is to do whatever you like, but you don't come home to me. You come home, you dead. If I say you do laundry, it's you do your laundry. You don't want to touch a daddy underwear. So you eat a food, but you don't want to clean the dish after you eat the food. You used to go dirty in your underwear, but you don't want to clean the dirty in the underwear. 너 죽었어. You dead. He's I'm not daddy, not to say, oh, you died like a joke. No, you come home, you should die. You died.
When I was your age, I moved out of the house, lived on my own, went to college while in high school, worked 2 jobs, was a volunteer fireman, and still went to school. Your responsibilities include waking up on time and getting on the bus. That's the end of your responsibility each day. You don't have that hard a life, but you're about to.
You know, your complaints of my life are so hard. Daddy is the one to church every Sunday on a mountain. He said, I climb a mountain in the snow. He said, donkey on my back. I'm going to hate to see the day. You is the one go to school, so you read the book. Oh, such a big hard life. Oh, I know what is the best for you. Oh, you have to go to school? That's your job. You have a TV, television, you have a shoes, you have a pool. What else do you need? Yeah, you want a boyfriend? I kill him.
So, what did we just see? We just saw basically a video of 2 men. And for the context of the first one we saw was basically his daughter was really frustrated about the tyranny of her parents, so she basically took to Facebook to write a long post about her frustrations of doing house chores. So the father, upon seeing this, chose to respond through the video we saw.
Now, this video went completely viral. And as that happened, David So, a very popular comedian in the Asian American community of YouTube, decided to make a parody of it. He took the same content but put it into the Asian American culture context, and this video also went viral. I will now go a bit deeper into each video. Basically, the American parenting video is, as Chloe previously mentioned, a dad's response to his daughter's angry rant on Facebook. Tired of having to do chores and being slaved around by her parents, the girl decided to vent out her anger publicly on a Facebook post. In the video, the father reads each and every word of that post and responds in frustration and disappointment. Through this video, he had hoped to teach his daughter a lesson about being grateful and make sure that this kind of behavior would never happen again. Now you may be wondering why the man chose to do this in a public manner. Well, the father explained in external sources that he did this in order to reach a greater audience. Rather than posting a video just to target his daughter, he wanted to teach these same lessons to his daughter's Facebook friends and the parents of his daughter's Facebook friends, and let everyone know the lazy and ungrateful mindset of children today. Compared to that, the very threatening and angry tone created by the father in the American parenting video, David's parody video is very humorous and has a very light tone. Although he expresses his anger in a shouting voice and uses high-pitched noises, the tone is generally very light and definitely intended to give the audience a laugh. By incorporating the same message into the new background of the Asian American culture, David sheds light upon various Korean cultural aspects like language, hand gestures, and more. In so doing, he appeals to his large Korean American fan base and ultimately creates empathy with them through the cultural connection shared in this video. Similarly to the original video, David responds to the post while sitting down in a chair.
So now I'm going to be talking about a theory, and basically the man called Vygotsky, he was a Russian psychologist, and he developed a theory known as the social development theory. One thing that I talked about is that social interactions in one's life basically builds up their cognitive development. So one quote he said was, "Every function in a child's cultural development appears twice. First on the social level and later on the individual level." So also one thing we have is MKLs in our lives. These are more knowledgeable others, basically anyone with a higher knowledge of understanding than us. So as we go from infants to toddlers to childhood, and as we now transition into adulthood, we've always had MKOs around us. For example, Mrs. Jackson might be the MKO for us in the context of literature. For athletes, you can have coaches, and for theater kids, you can have directors. However, one commonality we all share is that we've all had parents watching over us. Now, how does this relate back to the video we saw? Well, we just said that social interactions develops our cognitive developments. Therefore, socializing differs among different cultures. So, this leads to different methods of child rearing from different parents.
Now we're going to compare and contrast more deeply the two videos that we watched based on culture, diction, and content.
So, I'm going to be explaining for the American parenting side. One quote from ideas.ted.com was, "American parents are highly focused on making sure that their child's talents are groomed to success." So basically, American society focuses a lot on political news, about the environment, about economy and stuff like that. So basically, Americans are really sort of groomed to fear and be cautious about the real world. Because of that, a lot of them choose to raise their kids to maximize their abilities so that they can survive in the world.
Now, for the Korean American culture, the Korean culture itself encourages parents to have very high expectations for their children. This is because Korea is a country that developed immensely in a very short period of time. Therefore, competition and speed is greatly valued in the Korean society. Once you fall behind, many Koreans believe that there's no way to catch up. Therefore, parents are usually very strict and rough in the treatment of their child, showing tough love. Especially with the Asian American culture, where families move from their native Asian country to America in search for success, success must be achieved by the children.
Next, we're going to be talking about the diction of the language used in the videos. One line he said was, "You don't have that hard of a life, but you're about to." As we can see, he uses very colloquial language and casual language. This is because the targeted audience for this language is his daughter, and the purpose of it was to discipline her. He also chooses to use profanity when he says, "You won't get off your lazy ass to even look for a job." He uses profanity because he's trying to show his anger towards her through the video to also publicly humiliate her.
Now, there are three main elements of diction that David uses in his video: Konglish, vulgar language, and exaggeration. David says, "You a shovel dookie 새끼야. 너 진짜 미치겠다 이 새끼야." Just as this example, even in mid-sentence, he switches back and forth between two languages. The mix of culture in these families causes members to merge two languages in order to communicate. David also uses a very heavy Korean accent and has many grammatical errors, such as you is. This is to help target his intended audience, young Korean Americans relate better and thought of possibly their own parents. Vulgar language. David shouts the word "sekya," which means baby but also means asshole in Korean. It is a very colloquial word that is commonly used between friends or between parents and children. Depending on the tone in which the word is dictated, it can either carry a very positive or negative connotation. Therefore, one can see how intimately the contrasting connotations are tied in the Korean language, and see how parents utilize that to their advantage. And lastly, exaggeration is used. Daddy went to church every Sunday on a mountain. I climbed a mountain in the snow with a donkey on my back. By adding exaggerations like donkey on my back, David connotes the hardships that he went through and simultaneously emphasizes his superiority in power and strength because he was able to complete the task successfully compared to his daughter that constantly complains and posts these issues on social media.
Next, we're going to be talking about the content of the language that they used. One thing he said was, "Pay you for chores? Seriously, pay you for chores?" As you can see, he adopts a very sarcastic tone rather than being straight out angry, which is also an influence of culture. And because of the sarcastic tone, we can get that he really means, "I ain't paying you for your chores." Another quote he says is, "I worked 2 jobs, was a volunteer fireman, and I still went to school." So as we can see, he also, like the Korean man, he discusses his hardships a lot to minimize the daughter's complaints in order to also further emphasize the purpose of the video as well.
So, the message portrayed in David's words of physical motion says a lot about the relationship between parents and children in Korea. In the Korean American culture, parents stand way above children. As quoted by David, "I did not swim 4,000 miles to shovel dookie. That's your job." The parents believe it to be natural that children are grateful for what they are given and establish that every day by brainwashing the children and always saying things as though what David said. "You get to live in my house. That's paid for you," is another example that shows how parents expect their child to be thankful for the things they are given instead of complaining as did the daughter through the Facebook post. It's very common for Asian American parents to degrade their children in comparison to themselves as well. "Such a big, hard life" is a phrase that David uses very sarcastically to not only create a humorous but also a condescending tone to make his daughter's life seem too easy compared to his own. By suppressing their child in this manner and constantly showing off their superiority, Korean American parents demonstrate a very unique style of parenting.
Now as we draw to the end of our presentation, we'd like to say, what do we want you guys to take away from this?
Well, as you guys saw in our presentation, depending on the parent's background, the way that they deliver the same message to their children can differ greatly.
We also wanted to show you how the audience, which was to these children who were misbehaving, and the purpose, which was to discipline them, affects the structure and the content of the texts used. Thank you!
Oh, yeah, yeah. Does anyone have questions for this group? You guys
Yes.
should call me.
You have mentioned that sarcasm, when the American parent uses sarcasm instead of going straight to being angry, you said that was a direct result, or like not a result, but a symptom of a cultural effect. Can you specifically tell me what kind of cultural effect that was?
Well, Americans, as we talked about in the presentation, we said that they focus a lot on the news reported, and because of that, it kind of became a part of their life. So rather than having that, shock of the Koreans when the grades come out, or like they try to be straight out angry in order to do it, because it's such a normal thing in Americans' lives to kind of have to be cautious around the real world. That, like we said, they sort of adopt a more casual tone and being more sarcastic in order to discipline them.
Other questions? I have a question about the purpose of the different videos. So the first one you said was a very honest and straightforward attempt to parent, to do some parenting, whereas the other one was a parody.
Yeah.
So how did you feel like you could still compare the two if one was real and one was not real?
So the reason is because David is a comedian, but he also deals with very serious issues at times, and he has many videos talking about some of the Asian stereotypes, and he does a lot of commentary on the news. Like he has a very famous video talking about his opinions and thoughts on a racial issue that happened in UCLA recently. So because I knew about David and that David was not merely a comedian that does things very lightly, but also brings it to a very deep cultural context, I found that the parody had a deeper meaning rather than just making the audience laugh. But also, he touches upon a lot of stereotypes indirectly, like the very harsh accent in Korean. Not all Korean American parents have that, but he does that, and he has very bad grammar. And I thought that because of those elements, you could compare the two, even though one was a parody and one was a very serious one.
So do you think that David's purpose of making the video was to talk about the specifically Asian parent stereotypes, or just in general, was he trying to parody and make fun of the American parenting videos that we saw?
I think the reason why David made the video, as I mentioned, is to really target his audience, because he makes his video based off of the requests that he gets from his YouTube fans, and I'm pretty sure 90% or more are Asian Americans, and he wanted to appease to those fans, but also he himself deals with a lot of Asian American issues, and he talks about those stereotypes that happen and the racism that is shown towards Asian Americans in America even today, which is why he decided to parody that video and take that into the Asian American culture context.
Yeah. Count one.
From the experience of both of yours combined, do you think these two parents are an accurate portrayal of their respective community?
Well, I think honestly, the Asian one is, I think a majority of Asian Americans or people who just raised up in Asian countries, I think they can kind of at least see like a portion of the Asian American parent in their parents. As for the American side, I think, honestly, both of them are kind of stereotypes, even though the American one was the real one. But I think you can see elements of both in all of our parents in different times, so I think both of them are very relatable.
Thank you.
Which style of parenting do you think is better in your opinion?
Well, for me, I think I grew up with a parenting that's not even related with these two presented. So if I were to choose from the two, I think I would choose the Korean American parenting, because I'm used to the Confucianism ideas that adults are above us, parents are above us. So the reason David gets mad and stuff, I'd be able to understand. But I think if I grew up in a completely American culture that doesn't emphasize those kind of Asian values as much, and the dad was getting very upset and stuff, I'd feel pretty rebellious as well.
Well, for me, I think I would also choose a Korean American parenting, because we didn't include one scene because it wasn't directly related to language. But at the end of it, the American man actually shoots the girl's laptop like 10 times as a punishment. So, and Korean parents, they don't really carry out with the punishments that they're threatening, like, oh, you dead, they're not gonna actually kill you. But he said, oh, I'm gonna shoot your laptop, and he actually shot his laptop. So I think, I think I heard laptops, I think I would prefer the Korean American parenting. Yes, Arjun.
Do you know how the girl reacted to her
Oh.
dad?
Yes, I know. So after research, we found out that actually it's fine. The girl is not very upset. She realizes what she did wrong, and they were making jokes, apparently the dad and the daughter, after the video happened. They were like, oh, maybe we should sell these laptop pieces on eBay and make money. And then the girl said for a joke, oh, Dad, you should shoot my phone too, and then we can sell those pieces on eBay too, and you can get me a new phone. So the daughter is very understanding of what happened, and she realizes the things that she did wrong.
Okay, I think we need to stop the questions so we can make sure that
Okay.
everybody has a chance to present. Thank you.